You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking with Laurie Puhn. She has a private practice in couples mediation, and she's the author of the bestseller, Fight Less, Love More, 5-minute conversations to change your relationship without blowing up or giving in. Laurie, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
I know you're a real expert in how couples deal with one another. I think I must have seen you on Fox News or on Good Day New York or CNN or one of these other top shows. And you talk a lot about how couples can work together. So can you share with us a little insight, maybe what's the most important thing couples can do to ensure a lifelong happy relationship?
Well, the scary thing is that no matter how happy a couple is and no matter how wonderful the newlywed years were or the dating years were, even the best of us are going to walk down a slippery slope toward neglect, where we neglect each other and we come to ignore the things that we expect our mate to do. And this is normal human behavior. The same thing, let's say someone arrives on time and, you know, it's the third date and he's there when he says he's going to be and he's made the reservation at the great place and you go there and you're thinking, oh my gosh, finally, someone who follows through on his word. And you know what? By the time you're married, he shows up when he says he's going to show up and all you can tell him is what he forgot to bring.
Oh, no.
But that's normal. And so my warning to all couples is to say, look, we really have to bring values into our relationship every day with the things that we say and don't say and the things we do and don't do. And if we're not conscious of giving that compliment a day, of waking up in the morning and saying, good morning, instead of just, you know, can you take care of this? Can you get the dry cleaning for me? Can you go to the supermarket? You know, if we can remember the civilities, the niceties of life that brought us together and the way in which sometimes we're kinder to strangers than we are to our spouse, if we can remember to bring those values of appreciation and compassion every day, and it's not easy, it's a decision, that's how we have that real foundation and connection so that when true obstacles come our way, we're actually still friends and we can still handle it together.
You're using the term values and then saying one of the values is to be civil. Are there other values that people should be bringing to a relationship? Well,
actually there aren't. I mean, the values are pretty, the high values that I would hold true for all couples as necessary for a lasting relationship is appreciation, which I said, respect. Perhaps I didn't articulate that one yet. But respect, compassion, intimacy, cooperation, the ones you would want to think you have, right? You want to think you have these values. So whatever it is that you think is what makes a person worthy, you know, we need to turn those abstract values into terms of concrete words and actions on a daily basis. So for instance, respect. Well, what does that mean when we're having a fight? And this is why my book is Fight Less, Love More. It's not don't fight. You know, we're going to have differences and we're going to argue, but let's do it respectfully. And let's only do it about the topics that actually matter. That's how to fight less. I have a whole chapter on Pick Your Battles and how to do that right. But if you're going to fight, before jumping in and assuming and getting angry, ask questions. Mm-hmm. Right? A good fighter, a loving fighter, is one who plays detective. Why do you think that? What happened? What am I missing?
Sorry, I wanted to follow that to one of the areas that I deal in a lot as a financial planner. My day job is that I work with people as a financial planner, although I must admit I often feel more like a marriage counselor. I only do the radio gig once a week. But a lot of times I deal with people and in their money concerns, and I see that the stress that it raises, the stress level that's raised between the two of them. How would you suggest couples handle their money so that it doesn't lead to arguments?
Well, the first thing I found myself as a couples mediator when it comes to money is it tends to be that one person has the facts and the other person does not.
Yeah,
and
I think that's very true.
And arguments tend to become absolutely absurd because one is basing it off of some fantasy, whether it's that they're poorer than they think they are or they're richer. And the first thing I say is, let's get on the same page. And that comes down to respect as well. It's, if you want to have a respectful disagreement, then, put opinions to the side for a moment and be sure you're on the same factual page. And that means that, you may like that your spouse takes care of the finances, but you know what? If he or she is the one doing everything and has all the information, then you just don't get a say. If you're going to argue but not know anything, then it's just really not going to be a valuable opinion. So instead, you say, I would like to have a valuable opinion. Therefore, can we sit down for an hour and we will discuss and figure out exactly what money is coming into the house and what's coming out. And let's figure that out. And from there, then we can have a reasonable discussion about budget and luxuries and travel and costs and rent and whatnot. But that's where a fight should lead. If you're out in the clouds, it should be, okay, let's pull back for a moment and get the facts.
Right. I think that's an important position to take. I had a couple that came in, and the husband had been the one keeping track of all the money and had actually put together a very good spreadsheet. And he laid it down on the table, and he said to his wife...
And he's showing you, right? Not
he was showing me, and I was impressed. And
That's
then
right.
he said to her, he said, look how much money we're spending. They were spending way too much money. And he said, look how much money we're spending. And she said, I don't understand. We don't spend so much. And the funny thing is, he said, yeah, but look. And she said, but I don't understand. And what I realized at the time is, it's not that she's a very smart woman, and she could certainly understand the spreadsheet, but it wasn't her way of thinking. She just felt they weren't spending a lot, and he had done all the math, and they weren't really communicating, as you said, about the facts.
Right, and what it might mean if she, she has to have the courage to take a step forward and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a look at numbers and ask a lot of questions, and you just have to answer them. And I'm going to figure out in my head how I associate, income and spending. And it may not look like a spreadsheet. It may be understanding like what percentage goes to what parts of life. Thinking about, coming up with a common goal. We're saving money for what? And how much does that what cost? Having a plan in that way. But really, if somebody's saying something, the other one says, I don't understand, that's your red flag. That's the problem.
Right, that So, no,
Go on, I'm sorry.
I know, I'm agreeing with you. That was exactly the problem, and that's what we had to address. We are talking with Laurie Puhn, who has a private practice in couples mediation, but she's also a best-selling author. She wrote Fight Less, Love More. She also wrote a book called Instant Persuasion, How to Change Your Words to Change Your Life. She's been talking to us about how couples deal with money. Tell me something, Laurie, is it better for people to divide the money responsibilities or to try and do it all together?
It's different for each couple. It comes down to doing whatever is going to lead to respectful communication. So if one person can divide it and the other person trusts the divider and then says, okay, that's our budget, or this is what I can spend freely without having it pre-approved or have a discussion, then you're fine. And you don't fight about it, you're fine. But if there isn't that level of trust, or perhaps, it really comes down to it in the situation they're in, you really can't spend more than $50 on an item without both of you agreeing to it. Well, when you're under a tight budget like that, you tend to both need to know all the facts because it's hard to be told a yes or no from your mate. You kind of need to figure out the yes or no on your own.
I got you. So depending on how much money there is available, it'll really that would help to determine whether people have to work very, very much together or they could work a little bit more separately.
Right. How much flexibility there is means you can divvy it up a little more and without fighting. And there's no doubt that people who are less well off are going to face a tougher battle because they have to make really difficult choices that a lot of middle income and wealthier people and families don't have to make. Now, that's not to say that upper income people don't face other tremendous obstacles or that even with a lot of money you can lose your job. A lot of hardship comes that way too, but it definitely is another pile of stuff that needs to be worked on as a couple when you're dealing with financial issues.
One of the issues that I've seen in dealing with people of all ages is that there's really been a change in who the main breadwinner is. My older clients, it was normally the men, and now it's changed. Do you think, and terms of your practice that perhaps men these days feel worse about themselves when they're not the main breadwinner in the family?
Only if it's already a bad relationship. And what I mean is, I tend to look through the prism of communication and how well we're showing values every day of I respect and appreciate you and care about you and I put you first on my list. If you feel and express that every day, then the fact that the woman is a breadwinner will not make a difference. That's because the man feels, oh, so she might say, he is my perfect match. When I'm freaking out and all stressed, he knows exactly how to calm me down. He keeps me centered. He keeps me focused. Okay, that is a woman who's praising her mate, and he might earn less than her, but he knows that he matters to her, and that he's valuable to the family, and he's an amazing father. So, he's getting what he needs to feel important, and we all need to feel important. Men like praise too, Men want to be valued, and they want to know it. So on the other hand, if all those things are not said, and you don't give substance to values, then the man is much more likely to become part of the cultural norm where he values himself based on how much money he brings home. And when he doesn't bring home enough, seemingly enough, or less than his wife, he can feel insecure about it.
I see. Okay. Laurie, we're just about out of time. We've been talking to Laurie Puhn, who is a couples mediator. She's a best-selling author, and she appears all over the media talking about how people can improve their relationships. Laurie, in the last couple of seconds, can you just tell people how they could follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
Sure. Well, follow me. That always means Twitter, right? So Twitter, Facebook. Really, you can visit my website at fightlesslovemore.com, where we have plenty of free articles and quizzes, more information, the top 5 dumb arguments people have, smart couples have actually, and lots of great links as well to things that can help you in whatever marital problems you're facing. My book is also linked there, which is Fight Less, Love More, and you can reach that and find your way to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and purchase the book.
Okay, Laurie Puhn, thanks so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.